Hey, good morning. I'm so glad that you are here. Let me teach you something real quick. I want to teach you a little bit about some about some young people phrases. Some young people phrases. So I want to ask you a phrase, and I want you to confer with somebody around you real quick, and I want you to come up with what you think this phrase means. If you're young, right? If you say Gen Z or so, this does not apply. Don't give any hints away, okay? All right, so if you're an old like me, I want you to think through what this might mean, all right? Some of you may have heard this before. If somebody says, this is cap, all right? Somebody says, this is cap, I want you to figure out what that means. All right, so confer amongst yourselves for just a second. All right, we got it? You got it? All right, so what do we think? This is cap means it's a lie, right? We got it? All right, okay. All right, you're learning some young people phrases. Good for you, some of you. All right. What about ghosted? What do you think ghosted means? All right, one of my young friends in their 20s or below. What does it mean when somebody ghosts you? It means you're no longer their favorite. Exactly, yeah. It means they're not talking to you anymore. They don't even respond. I didn't even know people did this like a few years ago. I think maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, somebody was coming to church and doing stuff, and I sent them a text, and they didn't send me one back. And I was like, maybe they just didn't get it. And then I texted them again. And you know what they didn't do? They didn't text me back. And I thought, how rude. And so I texted him again. And then 2 weeks later, I texted him again. I just wasn't getting the hint, right? And I was like, and suddenly one day it dawned on me, like, this person is just not going to respond to me. So, they're burning somewhere, somehow. Just kidding. That's maybe too far? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, maybe just a little bit too far. So, all right, maybe next to last one. How about this one? Crash out. This is a newer one. Crash out. You hear about that person who's going to crash out? Or they were up there, they did crash out? All right, so if somebody crashes out, now our teenagers came early and they met with their student pastor, Anna, and they had donuts. So teenagers, if I say somebody crashed out yesterday, what does that mean? They got angry, they kind of went a little bit nuts, right? Kind of went a little bit, they were pressed beyond their breaking point, they just went a little bit nuts on somebody out there. Look, you could have gone to Urban Dictionary for this. You could have typed it into the old Google machine. You could have done it, but why not? You can come to a church where a guy wears a t-shirt as the pastor and learn all this stuff, right? Yeah. By the way, today, I don't know if you know this, today I have been at Church on the Drive for 10 years. 10 years. We weren't wearing a lot of t-shirts back then on Sunday morning, yeah. But I'm glad to be here with you and talking about all this stuff, all these young people phrases, and I know that most of you know them. Here's one last one. You ever heard somebody say this? It's a vibe. It's a vibe, man. A whole vibe. See the whole vibe. Now, what we mean by like a vibe, it can describe a lot of things, but we were talking about an overall mood or an overall energy of some kind. You know what I mean? So we can say maybe Taylor Swift's new album. Got any Swifties in here? People who love, yeah. Okay. Man, that hand shot up quick. I love that. All right, so we got some Swifties in here. And they're like, yes, I have listened to the album. And many of them they've gone on the record and said, this is a whole vibe. She is in, whatever era she's in now, I'm in that era with her. Yes? So that this idea of something being a vibe is like a mood, an overall energy, something of that nature. And so you hear people say this from time to time. It's a whole vibe. His outfit's a whole vibe, all the vibe, this vibe, that vibe, all the stuff. Here's the thing. Sometimes we apply the same level of thinking, the same line of thinking to God, don't we? We apply that same line of thinking to God. And so we'll make our belief in God is dependent upon a feeling. So when the song hits, when that singer hits that right note, or when the kick drum hits in during a worship song, or when, my favorite, the bass really hits, Wally, when the bass really hits. Give it up for our bass player. Look, I don't know why, I'm a longtime musician, but I just really love watching the bass players in bands because nobody ever gives them enough credit. But the stuff Wally does on Sunday morning is incredible. And he's just like, doo-doo-doo, and he's not even moving his face when he does it. He's just like me, I'd be up there just, yeah. You'd see me dancing, but Wally's just, and that's how most bass players are. No, never taking attention to themselves, nothing. So when the bass hits just right, many of us, we get to that moment and we're like, yes, Jesus, I can feel the Spirit now. That's when we feel God. That's when the vibe hits us. And there's nothing wrong with being motivated by music. There's nothing wrong with that sort of thing, and it enhances our worship. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Not at all. There's nothing wrong with music pounding and doing all that, but that's not God, is it? That's not God. Sometimes we treat God as if God is a vibe. So I get a good feeling when I go to the beach, and I say, man, I can feel God here at the beach. Or I go and I'm with my kids, and I get this really good feeling. I'm like, man, I can feel God here. But the thing is, a vibe can change, can it? A vibe, a mood, a feeling, all of those things can change. And when I don't feel those things, if I've attached my belief in God to that feeling, to that mood, to that vibe, then sometimes my belief in God can wane. My belief in God can suffer if I don't feel those feelings. But the thing is, vibes can change. Moods can change. Feelings can change. But if we're talking about God, we're talking about something, or more to the point, someone who is eternal. And something or someone who is eternal can never change. Otherwise, they're not eternal. So we went from talking about Gen Z phrases to now we're in a philosophy class. Are you staying with me? If something or someone is eternal, they can't change. They are always the same because the thing that they're doing is something they've always been doing and will always be doing by definition. Vibes can change. God won't change. And that's good. That's good because as we walk through life, many of us are asking a question about life, about death, about eternity, about, basically who's in charge of this place? Who is in charge of what happens in this life and what happens in the next? More to the point, who's going to take care of me? Isn't that what we're really after? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to make sure that I'm good for the rest of this life? Who's going to make sure that I'm good in that life to come? Who's in charge of all of this? Who's in charge of making this happen or that happen or not allowing this to happen or not allowing? Who's making all these decisions? And are they going to take care of me in the middle of these decisions? Because bad things happen to me sometimes and good things. Who's in charge? Because anybody who's in charge of life and death, we hope that they're unchanging. We hope that they're steady, that they're a rock, that they can be depended upon, that they can be trusted into. People have been answering this question through the lens of the Christian faith for about 2,000 years now. They've been asking, along with everybody else, who's in charge of what happens next? Who's in charge of what happens now? They've been answering it together, though, for about 2,000 years. And spoiler alert, they've been saying it was God all along. The earliest Christians were led by, many of them were led by a guy named Paul. And Paul wrote to some friends in Rome, some Christian friends in Rome. Many of them he had never met. And he wrote to them to talk to them about what it looks like to work all of this out, where this God is in charge of things now and in the life to come. And it was a really important time that he was writing to them, because at the time, they were experiencing a little bit of turmoil, a little bit of trouble within themselves. You see, in the church in Rome, the first Christians were Jewish Christians. And they came to faith first, and then they had some converts around them who were non-Jewish Christians. You don't have to know a whole lot about the ancient world to know that different groups were often very different. And Jewish people often separated themselves out of necessity around food and other ritualistic things from the rest of society. So the fact that these Jewish Christians brought in non-Jewish people to the faith is amazing and incredible. And it just marks how inclusive our God is, and how Jesus is for everybody at all times, everywhere. Well, things are going great. Things are going great. Now, these non-Jewish Christians, they don't know a whole lot about the foundations of the faith, and so the Jewish Christians are teaching them. And then all of a sudden, one day, the Jewish Christians, along with the rest of the Jews in Rome, get blamed for some bad stuff, and they get expelled from the city. They can't be in the city anymore. They have to get out of the way. Well, now you have this whole group of non-Jewish Christians who have come to faith. This whole group of non-Jewish Christians who have come to faith, and they're like, I guess we're going to figure it out now. I guess we're going to do this together now. And so they develop their own structures, their own way of doing church, their own way of doing discipleship, things like that. And after a few years, everything's going great. They add more people to the numbers, but after a few years, the Jewish Christians are allowed back into the city. And they come back and they say, hey, we're back. Let us teach you things now. And the non-Jewish Christians say, well, actually, we're the ones teaching stuff now. We're the ones doing all this stuff. It's kind of like when college freshmen go off to college, like they're good all semester, and then they come back at Christmas time. They come back home. I don't know if you've been through, I definitely did. Come back home, and mom and dad expect you to be in your room in bed at like 11 o'clock. Meanwhile, all at college, you've been playing with your friends till 3 a.m. every night. So one night you come back and it's like 1 a.m., thinking you're coming home early just out of respect to mom and dad, and there's mom and dad waiting with a baseball bat. And it's for you. And they say, where you been? Where you been? What have you been doing? And they say, how come you didn't come back? That's so rude. How dare you? And you say, well, I'm a grown-up now. Oh, really? Do you pay your own cell phone? I could if I wanted to. You don't even buy your own Starbucks. When I have a gift card, I do. Yeah. It's that kind of change. It's that kind of change. Mom and dad are still like, well, I don't know. I've been teaching you all of this stuff, and I've been your mom. I've been your dad for years now, and I can kind of help you with this, and you need to listen to me, and also it's my house. And then the others say, well, I've had a little taste of freedom, and I've been leading myself through life a little bit. That's the kind of situation that the Jewish Christians and the non-Jewish Christians found themselves in Rome when Paul wrote to them. And so Paul writes this letter in an attempt, partly, to help them reconcile together and to understand how big God is and how small their little argument is in the context of what God is doing in the world. And as he's making his argument for these things, amongst a lot of other arguments that are theological and dense and beautiful and wonderful, Paul writes these words to them. He says, for none of us lives for ourselves alone, and none of us dies for ourselves alone. Which is a profound statement. Because when we're talking about living and we're talking about dying, we're really encompassing all the possible moments, aren't we? And Paul is saying that no matter where you are, no matter what time it is, no matter what point of life it is, you're not doing that for yourself. Now, he's not saying every single person. He's talking about Jesus followers, Christians, followers of the way, people at Church on the Drive later on. None of us lives for ourselves alone. None of us dies for ourselves alone. This is contrary to the message that was being sent out in Rome, and it's contrary to the message that's being sent out to us by our culture, our society, our world. Right? Often we're told this: you live for you, and you die for you. Not only that, you define you. And you belong to you. Nobody gets to tell you anything. Nobody should tell you how to live your life. Nobody should tell you when you're right, when you're wrong. Only you can decide that for you. You define you. You belong to you. That sounds great, doesn't it? That sounds pretty freeing. When I think about it, if nobody tells me what to do, that's pretty awesome. I don't like anyone telling me I'm right or I'm wrong. I only want them to tell me that I'm right. I don't like people telling me what to do. I only want them to ask me what to do. It makes me more comfortable that way. But even though it sounds freeing, I think it's ultimately not. Think about it this way. Say somebody handed you the keys to a nice, shiny new car. Your perfect car, whatever you want. For me, I need like a big truck or something, all right? That goes really fast. So we'll call it a Ford F-150 Raptor. All right. I've been here 10 years, people. Let's get it. No, I was kidding. Now, you get your car. You got your car in your mind, the one that you're going to drive, brand new, souped up, just the way you like it. You got your different things, all the stuff. You get in the car. They hand you the keys, and you go, okay, where are we going? And I look at you. I hand you the keys, and I say, you can go wherever you want to go, man. Or girl, you can go and you can do whatever you want to do. Whatever you feel like in your heart, that's where you go. And you'd sit there and go, you're weird, but okay, I'm going to do it. So you pull out of the driveway and you start going. And you start driving. Now remember, you don't have a map. You don't have a GPS. You don't have the things you can get from like AAA, none of that stuff. You don't have a phone to do this, nothing. You're just driving wherever your feelings take you. And that sounds pretty good. Till you get lost. Till you get lost, man. Because sometimes you end up in places you didn't want to go. Have you ever done this? Have you ever just driven somewhere and you didn't know exactly where you were going? And maybe you didn't have like cell service or anything like that. You just kind of had to work it out. Sometimes you end up in places you didn't want to go. And if you made enough turns, you don't know how to get back where you came from. And you end up really lost. Imagine you're doing this and you're trying your best to get to a place and you end up in a place you don't want to go. You meant to go to the beach, but somehow you ended up in the desert. Or maybe your car breaks down. Or maybe you get a flat tire. Or maybe you have a crash. It sounds freeing, it sounds fun until there's no map, until things don't go right. You and I weren't designed to do this. We were designed to go through life with God, to belong to God. You weren't designed to be on your own. You weren't made to carry that level of weight, to carry that kind of pressure. And so when you start to try to carry it all on yourself, it can be exhausting. And that's why Paul goes on to write this. He says, if we live for the Lord. And if we die for the Lord. Now watch this last sentence. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. You don't belong to you. You don't belong to them. You belong to the Lord. That's different. That's different. You know, a lot of times in culture, we're left thinking, I need to do what's right for me. But a lot of the times, it plays itself out as, I'm going to do things that show I actually belong to the people around me. I'm going to make them happy with the way I dress. I'm going to make them happy with the places I show up to. I'm going to make them happy with the way I talk, the music I listen to. I'm going to make them happy with the political candidates I support or don't support. I'm going to make them happy with my posts on social media. I can go on and on and on, and so can you. But Paul doesn't say, if we live for Buddy. If we die for Buddy. No, he says, if we live or die, we belong to the Lord. We belong to the Lord. That's why early on the Christians said, look, none of this stuff is right. None of this other stuff really works for us. It has to be about belonging to God. See, if you're a Jesus follower, your life is always and only about Jesus. Now, at first, that might make you feel a little bit weird, but let me ask you something. Who do you think can navigate your life better? Jesus or you? Now, you might be more comfortable with you doing it at first, but better? That's obviously Jesus. He's smarter, been around longer, knows what's going on. He's all wise, all compassionate, all good. Of course that's the one you want leading your life. Of course that's the one. This is the one that in him, by him, through him, all things were made. Nothing has been made unless it was made through Jesus. It was Jesus who did all of this. So why wouldn't Jesus have a better claim to your life than you do? It only makes rational, logical sense to say, I belong to him and he's going to run things. He's going to navigate my life. Better yet, let's say it this way. My only hope in life and death is that I belong to God. That's my only hope. Otherwise, I'm risking a lot of things. I'm risking a lot of things. So I'm going to put my hope, my trust in God. Now, again, it's not always super simple, is it? But it's the rational, it's the logical thing to do. So, if we're talking about it, if we're looking at these verses, if we're wondering what Paul is talking about, let's break it down again. I know it's been a second since we looked at the verses. Let's look real quick. First, he says, none of us lives for ourselves. In other words, you're not the center. You're not the center. Who's the center? God is. All right? He goes on. Whether we live or die, that's every possible moment. Living, dying, covers it all. And then finally, we belong to the Lord. That is your identity. That is your hope. When everything falls apart, when life is good, when life is bad, when life is ugly, when things don't make sense at all, when they make perfect sense, whatever it is, what holds you together is not that you have the ability, is not that you are enough. It's that you know the one and you belong to the one who is enough. Think about it in terms of a family. I've got some friends who they always wanted to have children. And for whatever reason, physically, they weren't able to have them. Like there's something biological there. But they always want, I mean, the guy, he's always wanted. He's the guy in like fourth grade going, man, I can't wait to be a dad. The rest of us are going, yeah, but did you see Michael Jordan last night? That was pretty awesome, right? Did you see that game? He's like, yeah, but I want to be a dad. And his wife, man, she has always wanted to be mom, and she's a great mom. She's like that personality before they become a mom, they're going to be a great mom. And so they prayed and they prayed and they prayed, and they were never able to have children. And they finally said, you know what, we want to adopt because we want kids so bad. They said, we're going to adopt. And it took a while to go through the whole process. If you've ever been through that process, I know some of you have. It takes a long time. They had to go through a lot of different interviews and things like this. And finally, they're told, hey, you're going to be able to adopt this baby in 6 months' time. Great. And so they did what every other parent does. They got ready. They started painting a nursery, moving things out, changing up carpet. The husband put a hole in the wall by accident, had to go fix that later. That's generally what happens. Everything gets nice. There's clouds painted on the wall. There's clouds painted over here. There's different things going on like that. They get it all looking nice. And the day finally comes. They get the call. Hey, she's in labor. You can come pick the baby up at the hospital. And so they go to the hospital, they pick up the baby, and they walk out holding this baby. They take this baby out, and he drives as slow as possible on the way home, just a nervous wreck. They get home, they walk across the threshold, and they're just holding that baby, and everything feels complete. Let me ask you something. Do you think that baby had to do anything to be loved right in that moment? Not a chance. That baby was loved because that baby belonged already. Because those parents chose that baby. They adopted other children after that too, and each one, it was the same thing, and their siblings loved them too. None of those children ever had to do anything to belong. They just did. And it's the same way with God. We have been adopted into the family of God, and you don't have to do anything to earn God's love or God's approval. You don't have to earn God's love in your life. You don't have to earn God showing up in your life and wanting to navigate you through life. You don't have to earn that. You already belong. It's not about your performance so much as it's about just belonging. Your value isn't based on performance. It's based on belonging. So the question is, do you belong to God, or do you just believe there's one out there? The reality is, many of us in this room and many of us online, we believe in a God. Intellectually, we believe in a God. But I wonder how many of us belong to him. Those are different things. Those are very different things. So the question comes, what is our only hope in life and death? That we are not our own, but belong to God. And we're not our own. We belong to God. When we think about it that way, maybe we can boil it down to this. You're not yours. Which goes against most instincts in my body. Like I want to belong to me. I want to be the one in charge. I want to be the one in control. And I'm guessing that probably so do you. That there's some God that I can't see or touch or smell or anything like that, that I'm supposed to give control of my life, that I'm to that God. That I'm supposed to have faith enough to let that God guide me through life. Friend, I'm here to tell you that's the best way to live. That's the best way to, if you believe in God, if you believe that Jesus was who he said he was, that he died on a cross, was resurrected from the grave, and now lives forevermore, interceding for us. If you believe that, then the best way to live is to belong to him and to let him navigate your life and go through life. Because what's true is, many of us, we try to control our life. We try to belong to us. And ultimately, it's exhausting. Ultimately, that gets exhausting. If that's you, if I'm describing you, let me ask you a question. What if you quit doing that? What if you just surrendered and said, God, I belong to you. I'm going to do what you want. The happiest people I know are the ones who have said, God, I belong to you. And the reason is because that's generally the moment when they stop caring what other people think. And they stop trying to put themselves up against other people. They stop comparing themselves to other people. They stop feeling that they have to always listen to somebody else, because their only goal in life is to please God. When your only goal is to please God and to do the right thing by whatever God has said, doesn't matter what that lady that you work with thinks. Doesn't matter even what grandma thinks. It only matters what God thinks. So I don't have to worry anymore. Even in death or in life, whether I'm alive or whether I've died, I don't have to worry even about that stuff, because God is with me. God has promised to be with me. I don't have to think about it anymore. I can take risks. I can move through life with great joy because I feel free. And that's what I want for each and every one of you, man. I want each and every person here and those watching online, I want each and every one of you to feel that joy that comes from the freedom that living in Christ gives us. And it's all because you belong to God. Our only hope in life and death is that we are not our own, but belong to God. Let me pray for you if that's all right. Thank you that in life and in death, we belong to you. Help us to surrender the lie of self-ownership. Help us to surrender the lie that we can do this without you. God, I pray for all those listening to the sound of my voice that they would have the courage to say, I belong to you, God, and to live as if it's true. Lord, I pray that you would banish worry, that you would banish fear, that you would banish anger, that we would live in joy because there's a great freedom. There's a great, incredible freedom that comes from saying, I only have to please the God of the universe. That's all I'm worried about. Help us to approach life in that way. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.